There is not a single objective barrier to the political decision to invite Ukraine into the alliance. And now, when most people in NATO countries and the majority of Ukrainians support NATO accession, is the time for the corresponding decisions. It's impossible to imagine security of the Euro-Atlantic area without Ukraine, and people understand that.
I also recognize that President Zelensky will raise the issue of membership of security guarantees, and this will be high on the agenda of the meeting and also in the lead-up and the preparations for the Vilnius summit. Ukraine's future is in the Euro-Atlantic family. Ukraine's future is in NATO. All allies agree on that.
Meanwhile, President Volodymyr Zelensky says NATO needs to invite Ukraine to become a member and give it a time frame for accession, adding that the upcoming NATO summit in Vilnius in July could become, quote, historic. So for more insight, our senior correspondent Bianca Zanini is here in studio. So the significance, Bianca, of this surprise visit by Jens Stoltenberg to Kyiv. It's 14 months into this invasion, but he has a very important message on this day.
Right. It's an important visit. On one hand, it's a very symbolic visit. It underlines the support. You said it yourself, a show of support for Ukraine. It shows, again, the lines of communication and that the two countries are pretty much on the same page. It's also an opportunity to ask for and announce more help and more support. Stoltenberg said that Ukrainian soldiers have been trained by NATO soldiers and that NATO has given so far around $17 billion worth of military aid to Ukraine. And he pledged his continuous support, even if it is for the long run for Ukraine. But we have to listen to the wording of what he said. He said Ukraine's future is in NATO. He didn't say the near future or the present or anything like that. He said the future. And, you know, this is actually nothing new. He's been saying that there will be a time where Ukraine will join NATO for a long time, and this has been on the table for about a decade or something like that. And of course, Zelensky is going to continue to push for this because it's very, very important. But the reason why it's so unlikely to happen right now is because if Ukraine were to join NATO, the alliance, it would be protected by Article 5. That's the main commitment of the NATO countries, which says if one is attacked, we're all attacked. If one fights back, we all have to fight back.
Which is exactly why Ukraine wants to be part of NATO.
Which is exactly why Ukraine wants to be part of NATO, but it's also the reason NATO can't just say, all right, come in. Because if that were to happen, that changes the picture completely. We're talking about a war in a much different scale. It would involve the NATO countries, and it would put NATO itself under pressure. They could try to find other ways of doing it, but it would question the alliance itself. And then from Putin's side, he's already said, and he's warned many times, that if Ukraine enters the war, it will be a World War III. He's said since the beginning he does not want NATO presence near his borders, and he said that this was part of the reason the invasion started to begin with. And if it were to happen, he's going to point fingers and say, look, the West is escalating the war just like I said it would. So you have all these reasons that make it really dangerous for Ukraine to join NATO right now, which is why they're holding back. But at the same time, they want to show the support and say, well, we're with you, just not entirely with you.
It certainly will be interesting to see what, if anything, happens between now and, of course, that NATO meeting in Lithuania in July. We will be watching, and of course, our senior correspondent Bianca Zanini will be breaking down all the latest details. Thank you so much, Bianca.